Welcome to Company Secrets, the Nutcracker Paradox. I'm your host, Jared Redick. This season, we are diving into the most enduring, profitable, and beloved ballet in the world, the Nutcracker. Every year, millions watch it. But how are today's choreographers and artistic leaders handling its complex history and its future? This is season 2. Let's get started. Today, I'm joined by Amy Seiwert, choreographer and artistic director of Smuin Contemporary Ballet. Amy's work is in the repertory of over 15 major ballet companies across America, and she's been backed by the NEA and the Kennedy Center. The Joyce Theater named her their first National Artist in Residence. And in 2010, the San Francisco Bay Guardian called her the Bay Area's most original dance thinker. After 19 years as a dancer, a decade as choreographer in resident at Smuin, and 2 years leading Sacramento Ballet, Amy became artistic director of Smuin Contemporary Ballet in fall 2024. Welcome, Amy.
Hi.
So great to have you here today.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
We are here to talk about all things Nutcracker and beyond. When you think of the Nutcracker, what's the first word that comes to mind?
Well, it's not a word, but when I think of the Nutcracker, I think of this massive growing tree that we had when I was a child at Cincinnati Ballet. And it was a 3-dimensional tree, which I didn't realize was very rare, but it actually grew and rotated and turned. You know, I was 8, so that was the most magical thing on the planet.
I'm sure. When I first started my career, I was in San Francisco Ballet, and they didn't have a 2-dimensional tree. They had a tree that grew up through the stage. And it was just massive. So I totally understand the 3-dimensional aspect of that. When you created your Nutcracker at Sacramento Ballet, it was the only full-length world premiere by a woman that season in the entire country. Nutcracker is a coming-of-age story of a young woman, yet yours is one of a small handful choreographed by women.
Yes.
What's your feeling on the importance of telling this story through the female perspective?
I mean, I love that aspect of it. Just that it is so rare is a little surprising. And that stat you just said about, this was the only full-length ballet created by a woman that year. I didn't know that until I read it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, well, what do you know? But I do think it's interesting that this is the ballet that most people on the planet, or at least in the United States, see. Often at a very young age, you're usually brought in through your school or something like that. So we've got this epic exposure to this ballet that has so much to do with a young girl, and it is primarily told by men. And some of those men are brilliant choreographers with beautiful things to say. But it really was nice to add a female perspective to it. I've seen so many productions through the years, and eventually when I was looking at it, there would be things that would strike me as I would do that differently. And a lot had to do with either Clara or Marie or, whatever name you want to assign to the protagonist. But there was one after the battle scene and Clara's there and the Nutcracker says, I want to take you on a grand adventure. And Clara runs to her uncle and says, please, can I go? Can I go? And he thinks about it. He goes, okay, you can go. And I'm like, what 12-year-old boy ever asked for permission to go on an adventure? Why is she asking permission? Just go. Just little things like that I think are so important, especially when we are conveying this story to a lot of adolescents and young folks with developing perceptions of how to walk in the world.
I think about this story, when you really think about this story arc of Clara or Marie, whichever version you're looking at, and you think about, we have these strong female characters in literature and the films. You think about Jo March from Little Women. You can think about Hermione Granger in Harry Potter. And these are very, very strong female characters. And again, they would not ask permission to do what they wanted to do.
Yes.
It's a very different telling of that story. And I get the importance of maintaining the tradition. However, we can still rethink of how we're telling these stories, as we need to do in many aspects throughout, especially in the ballet canon.
Yes, absolutely. It was so important to me that she be a multidimensional character as opposed to kind of this stereotype of what a young, perfect girl is supposed to be. I wanted to give her agency. I wanted to give her, for example, she wasn't a victim. Fritz didn't break the Nutcracker. They broke it together. And they also tried to fix it together. So like I had that component of the story wasn't happening to her. Two other things that were so important to me. One was the mice come and drama, and she falls down. And there's that moment where oftentimes when I was a kid, the angels would come in and save her. As an adult, Drosselmeyer would come in and save her. Different versions, someone always came in and saved her.
Mm-hmm.
And in my production, no one saved her. She fell on the floor and she cried for a little bit. And then she wiped her tears and she walked forward on her own, because just this idea that you can do hard things, you can do things that scare you, you can get through these times. That moment was very important to me. And then the other one in the party scene where the parents are dancing, and often like you look at Balanchines and, the little girls are rocking their dolls, and then the boys come through, and the cacophony happens and all the boys cause ruckus. And in my version, some of the girls were rocking their dolls, some of the boys were playing quietly, and then this group of kids created the ruckus, and there were boys and girls creating that. And I just remember looking at this one girl, I'm like, you're going to have the hobby horse and you're going to ride it. She's like, yeah. And she was so excited, because sometimes girls are loud and that's okay. Yeah. These little things, if you looked at my version of Nutcracker, you wouldn't think that it was this crazy, nothing in it didn't look like the traditional story.
Right.
There was nothing where you're like, oh, this is the context of a different time. But it was, cultural competency was super important to me in creating this. I think I don't know, I had so much fun creating it. And I really like these little choices. They felt really good to make.
It sounds like, you're talking about you changed the story a little bit, but you weren't so divergent from the traditional telling of the story. So you can do these things without throwing out the entire premise of the ballet or of the story.
Yes.
Which is so important. And I do love the idea, because I think this is so important that we continue to reiterate and reinforce this to all the dancers and the students that we work with, is that you can do hard things. That is okay. You can do hard things. That's an important message.
Yes.
I love that idea. So for you in Nutcracker, Act 1 or Act 2, if you could only keep one, which would you choose?
That is a hard choice. I'd have to say Act 1. One, snow, the music. I love the snow scene I made. I love that music. It's so magical to me. And then I actually really love doing party scene and like the parent dances and the folk dances that kind of got woven into that. Mm-hmm. That was so much fun to make as well. So, but why do you got to choose?
Well, I mean, we have to have something that's, a little bit maybe controversial in some way, shape, or form. Like, how do you choose one or the other? Because if you look at it, it could be basically two different ballets. Yes, of course, there is a through line, but there's not a lot of storytelling in Act 2. Yeah, that connects it to Act 1. Again, depends on the version, depends on how it's told. But in general, you have a lot of storytelling, a lot of narrative in Act 1, and a lot less narrative in Act 2. Most of the harder dancing happens, with the exception of maybe snow scene.
Yes.
We touched upon this. We talked about it a little bit, that we know that Nutcracker is usually the first point of contact to ballet and to live performance. If it disappeared tomorrow, what do you think would happen to ballet?
I mean, in the U.S., so many companies rely on that influx of income that we'd have to come up with a new model.
I agree. Yeah. And I think beyond just the financial piece, because that's certainly, we know how important it is financially to companies, their viability, but it's also part of the holiday tradition too. Mm-hmm. It's not just about it does well at the box office, that it continues. It's not that. It is because it is part of everyone's holiday tradition to some degree. That's why I think it persists as it does.
Yes.
And speaking of which, I know that you just opened the Christmas ballet. Can you tell us a little bit about your production there at Smuin?
Sure. So Smuin does not do a Nutcracker.
Kind of answering the question right there.
Yes, but we do have a holiday tradition. So we have this production started 31 years ago. Michael Smuin conceived of the work as it's 2 acts. The first act is the white act. It's all Moritz, Bach, Vivaldi, and Mozart, a lot of traditional carols. It's where your hardcore ballet dancing is mainly living. And it's very grand and it's quite beautiful. And then the second act, he really flips the world and it's all in red and it's all pop songs and there's a lot of laughter. And it was very fun to do as a performer because I did it for 9 years. Coming from being the Sugar Plum Fairy, coming from, this thing where people saw Nutcracker and they clapped when they were supposed to, and behavior was very proper. In Christmas ballet, the amount of times the audience just laughs very hard, very loudly, and there's just this communication that's absolutely different. It's so much fun. So that's what we do here. It's a show that changes and evolves every year. Like this year, we've got 3 world premieres in it. I did something new. Miles Thatcher from San Francisco Ballet did something new. And then Julia Adam, a former principal with San Francisco Ballet, also did something. So every year it kind of changes. Some pieces come out, some pieces come back. About half the show is the choreography of Michael Smuin still. So we both can pay tribute to our founder and our namesake, but also continue to evolve that story in our current time as well as it did 30 years ago.
Well, that's great. So basically, you answered my previous question, which is what would happen if there was no Nutcracker. You've done that. You've great. Or Michael Smuin has done that with the Christmas ballet.
Yeah.
The Christmas ballet. Again, it sounds like fun. It reminds me of, brought to mind, Mark Morris's The Hard Nut, of course.
Yes. Oh, brilliant production. Absolutely brilliant.
Given all of that, at this point in your career, what's your relationship to Nutcracker?
It's funny because I grew up doing it and then, as a professional, did it for 10 years before I came here and joined Smuin as a dancer. And I think every dancer knows what it feels like to walk through the shopping mall and they're playing Waltz with the Flowers and you kind of have this moment, and you start to take it for granted a little bit. And then I was away from it for 19 years before I made one. And when I came back to it, I was like, this music is amazing. Like Grandpa, the music is phenomenal. I mean, Tchaikovsky's brilliant. You kind of stepping back into it, I really fell in love with it all again. And now I'm away from it again. So now I'm really, really quite fond of it. That said, am I going to go see one this year? Probably not, but mainly because I'm in the theater every week with another show.
You have your hands full with something else.
My hands are full. And I will say the interesting that's happened here is with Smuin. So we have all these traditional carols and pop songs. So now when you walk into the mall and you hear one of the songs that's in Christmas ballet, you're like, oh, God. So it's the same thing. It's just a different flavor.
Well, I'm so appreciative of your company. I had the pleasure of seeing them just a few weeks ago, and they just look fantastic.
Thank you.
Just really, really wonderful work that you're doing there. We're going to wrap up with a final question here, which is, what is the funniest or strangest note you've ever given a collaborator? Could be for any production you've done.
Well, I don't know if that's the funniest or strangest, but it's the most recent one where a dancer came on stage in the wrong costume and they were supposed to be wearing pants and they were wearing tights. So the note was literally, Mark, wear pants. And I was like, it's a weird thing to say to someone. But yeah, so that's the most recent one. I'm sure I have better and funnier ones. I'll think about it.
Unfortunately, that sounds like some note that I would have been given at the beginning of my career.
For the record, he knew he was supposed to be wearing pants. The quick change didn't work out the way it was supposed to.
Okay, all right. Fair enough. In defense of him, yeah.
Yes, no.
All right, Amy. Well, I'm so appreciative of your time. I wish you the best of luck with your Christmas ballet this year and the company, of course. This has been wonderful. It's great to chat with you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure and an honor. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here, Amy. If you liked our conversation here today, you can follow Company Secrets Podcast on all platforms and on our website, companysecretspodcast.com. Thank you for listening, because the stage is only part of the story.